Hi, this is Vanessa Baker with McHenry County Voter. Today we're speaking with Diane Johnson, who is running for McHenry County Board District 3. District 3 covers, correct me if I'm wrong, Nunda, northeastern Algonquin, and southeastern McHenry townships. It includes all or parts of McHenry, Crystal Lake, Prairie Grove, Lakemore, Holiday Hills, Island Lake, Oakwood Hills, and Port Barrington.
And also unannexed Cary. There's parts of Cary in there as well.
Parts of Cary. Thank you.
Did you get Cary in there?
No, I did not.
Yes, and there's parts of Cary.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Diane. Diane Johnson is a small business owner and a family mediator from Crystal Lake who says that shrinking the size of the county board will result in significant cost savings. Diane served 20 years on the Crystal Lake School District 47 board and 14 years as its board president. She also served as president of the McHenry County Education to Career Consortium.
Yes.
And the president of the Mediation Council of Illinois.
Yes.
Diane, I have to mention your other civic involvements as well.
Okay.
You are court-appointed special advocate, CASA,
Right.
for abused and neglected children, charter member of the Education to Empowerment, a Friends of McHenry County College Foundation providing scholarships to local women,
Right.
Stevens minister with Bethany Lutheran Church in Crystal Lake,
Yes.
Crystal Lake Chamber of Commerce member, Association for Conflict Resolution national member, and also in Chicago, and a member of the Minnesota State Bar Association and
Yes.
American Bar Association.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us, Diane.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for serving our community
Well,
for
you're
all
welcome.
these years. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have children in the Crystal Lake school system, and it's because of this woman here that they've had such wonderful education. So
Well, it was
in part.
In
right?
part. I was going to say, I think
like,
that,
wait, whoa.
that the administration, the teachers, and other board members had a lot to do with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and helped draw us to the community here in
Yes.
2002.
Yes.
And for people who hear a dog barking in the background, that isn't my dog outside of the fabulous side porch that we're filming it. So Diane, what led you to decide to run for county board?
Well, first of all, I think it was a matter of noticing that there was a need in McHenry County. We, as homeowners, all feel the burden of our homeowner property taxes. Our county doesn't seem to be growing in size. We seem to have flatlined with that. All you need to do is drive around our various communities and you see empty storefronts. In Crystal Lake, the old Walmart just was flattened and just disappeared. It seemed like almost overnight. And I think that people have noticed that we just seem to, kind of, I don't want to call us stagnating, but that's kind of what it feels like, is we're just flatlined. Some people approached me and asked me if I would consider running, and having been a president of a school board and a local leader for a number of years, I periodically get that. And so I attended some board meetings, and it became pretty clear to me that somebody who was really interested, I think, in the common good, not in politics, but in the common good and doing what's best for McHenry County, would be appreciated on the board. And I think that anybody would say that I'm hardworking and dedicated. I do my homework. I show up at meetings. I'm ready to speak out, and I'm ready to vote on important issues.
Thank you. Is that kind of what you wish voters knew about you? Is there anything else you'd like to highlight that you want voters to know about you?
I think that that it's very difficult running for a political position. Having run for the school board 5 times, it was a nonpartisan position, and running now politically is a bit different. I still see myself as a public servant. I see myself as there to represent individuals. My years on the school board taught me what it was to be a liaison to the public. When you are on a public board, that's what you are. People stop you in the grocery store, they call you on the phone, they tell you that something's happening, or they don't know how to approach a problem. And I see it as my job to follow through, to connect them with the right person, That doesn't mean that they always get the answer that they want, but at least that they become involved in the process and they don't feel like they're spinning their wheels. What I've found walking around and knocking on doors is a lot of people don't know who their representatives are on the county board. They don't know what district they're in. They know their township and where they vote. They may know their precinct. But by and large, the McHenry County Board itself is unknown to them. They don't know what they do. What is their role in the county government? They really don't know. I think that for that reason, somebody who is interested in being a liaison with the people is important. I also think that the McHenry County Board can do a better job of informing people what its purpose is. And I think as a representative, you need to be available. So that's how I would see myself, is as somebody who's there to do what's good for everybody and to be available to people when they need access to somebody, and to treat everybody with respect and try to follow through on whatever their issues are.
Thank you. To encourage voters to check out Diane's website at electdiane.com. And I'll put a link in the article.
Okay, thank you.
Voters will face an advisory referendum asking whether the board should decrease from its current size of 24 members. Diane, tell us more about this advisory referendum.
Well, the referendum is asking the voter whether or not they think that 24 members on the county board is the right number. It also refers to shrinking the board after the 2020 census is completed. I think that 24 members is a fairly large board. County board members, all except for the county chair, are part-time, and they earn a salary. We pay about somewhere between $570,000 and $600,000 a year in salaries to the county board. In addition to that, the county board also receives, even though they are part-time, you can opt to receive full-time health benefits, which costs the county somewhere around $260,000 or more annually. So in the big scheme of things, the county board has a budget of about $240 million. $1 million doesn't seem like a lot, but I think the county board needs to set its own tone. We need to look at ourselves. How are we operating? And whether or not part-time benefits or full benefits for part-time people is appropriate in this day and age. It seems like a perk that we should address and remove, in my opinion. I would not, if I'm elected, or once I'm elected, I would not receive benefits from the county. I think that the shrinking of the board also has another benefit, and that is it makes people more visible. When you have 24 board members, like I said, most people don't know who their 4 representatives are. It's really easy to become just one of the crowd and important votes that happen. For instance, one of the things that have been under discussion this past summer has been road issues in McHenry County. Not only the segment on Randall Road near Algonquin Road's intersection, but also an interchange up at 23 and 90 near Marengo. Those are important votes. They're important for our future as a county. And whichever way you come down on them, you should be there to vote as a board member. The incumbent Mr. Walkup wasn't present for either of those votes. And I think it's important that you have to be there. You have to be not just part of the discussion, but you have to be willing to say on the record which way you come down. So I think that shrinking the board would make people, as a representative, more visible, not only accessible for help, but also you can say, this is my board member when they're quoted in the paper, or you can look at the minutes and say, oh, my board member, my representative voted or didn't vote. And I think shrinking the board would have that benefit as well.
Thank you. So I'm going to read to you
Okay.
from a recent article by Kevin Craver of the Northwest Herald about your race for District 3.
Okay.
Okay. 2 last-minute ballot changes and a candidate running for 2 offices make the race for McHenry County Board District 3 an interesting one. Republican newcomer Chris Christensen was placed on the ballot to replace incumbent Nick Provenzano, who stepped down earlier this month to work full-time for U.S. Representative Randy Hultgren.
Mm-hmm.
Former Democratic County Board member Kathleen Bergen-Schmidt was placed on the ballot to replace candidate Kenneth Miller, who died unfortunately earlier this month, or I guess last month. The one incumbent on the ballot, Republican Michael Walkup, is not only running for his board seat, but also for McHenry County Board Chairman, which is allowed under state law.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first time for our county on that.
Yes.
Along with Democratic challenger Diane Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 candidates running for 2 open seats in your district.
Mm-hmm.
And that you, Diane Johnson, cited local residents' frustration with their tax bills as a main issue for running,
Mm-hmm.
and said the county board should look at how to do things better and find more cost efficiencies and improve personal performance. Would you like to talk about
Sure.
that article? It does sound very interesting.
Well, obviously, the replacements for the board member who stepped down from his seat, Mr. Provenzano, and Mr. Christensen replacing him, as well as the death of one of the Democratic candidates, Mr. Miller, has made it interesting to know where everybody sits on all the issues. I think that the second part of that, when you talk about Mr. Walkup running for both board chair and a board member, is interesting because it wasn't what was foreseen when the referendum was put in place and the board decided to have an at-large county chair. The part of the reason that was done was to keep the board from continuing to just elect from among themselves somebody to be chair of the board. And so it flies in the face of that particular situation that Mr. Walkup wants to be both a board chair and a board member, which allows him to vote on all issues. I mean, he won't be voting on tiebreakers, he would vote on whatever issue he wants. And so it is what it is. It is interesting that he chose to do that, even though he was part of the board that said, yes, we agree, this is what the public wanted. Mm-hmm. Part of my concern in running for the board, and it becomes so clear when I walk around and talk to people, you meet people with small children who move into their homes, and then their taxes in one situation went up $4,000 in 1 year. And they want their children in good schools, but they're going to struggle to pay their property taxes. And on the other end, I run into people who are in their late 50s and 60s who are facing retirement and go, I don't know how I'm going to afford to continue to live here because the taxes are so high. And they too have seen increases in their property taxes in the last year or so. I think that a lot of the burden sits on the property tax owner. Mm-hmm. And part of that is we don't have enough businesses in our county to share the burden with us. Mm-hmm. Property taxes support 9.6% support the county. There's a good chunk of it, around 70% support the school districts. And the only way that you can really help all of us, the county and the school districts, is if you have businesses helping to share the burden. And we need to make our county more attractive with things like improvement to our road infrastructure, our rail infrastructure, improving our skilled worker pool so that when companies come here, they know that they've got workers in county. About 2/3 of the people who work in McHenry County or live in McHenry County work outside of the county. It would be nice if we had people here that could work here, companies here that we could work for, so we didn't have to spend as much time on the road traveling and on the train traveling outside of the county. So I think that there are things that the county board can do to help make us more attractive. Attract businesses, work with the municipalities. Everybody seems to have an economic development portion to their city or village. to work with them. We just need to have a coordinated effort, and I think we all need to work together to have that done.
Thank you. What other issues do you think are most important to McHenry County?
I think one that I've heard quite a bit about is the Valley High Nursing Home has become a bit of a hot button issue. Valley High we've had the Valley High Nursing Home in McHenry County for 125 years. And back in, I think it was 2002, the voters passed a tax levy to improve the Valley High Nursing Home and help to support it. And it was running in the red. It wasn't able to, the way it was being run, it had a lot of temporary workers, and so a lot of money was going out the door to agencies just to get people in to make sure that the nursing home was being properly employed and staffed. What happened over time is now the nursing home has gotten to run in the black. And with the money that has come in from the Medicare, Medicaid, and private pay is a good portion of its proceeds. With that and what the property taxes have paid to it, it has built up a surplus, a pretty healthy surplus, which amounts to about 3 years of its, or a little under 3 years of its total operating expenses. It's about between $15 and $17 million a year is its operating budget. So the question has become, does the county board zero out the levy and say no more property taxes are going to go to Valley High, or not? And some people, there's been a lot of discussion about, well, how do we spend down the surplus? How do we spend down the surplus? What do we just get rid of the levy and let the surplus slowly trickle away until it's at a more appropriate level? I think that it begs the real question, which is whether or not we want a county nursing home. The voters put in a levy for the county nursing home. They supported it. And I don't think a 24-member board should make the decision by itself to undo the will of the voters. I think it's something that needs to be asked. Do we still value a county nursing home? And when I walk around and I talk to people about that, I hear lots of stories of people who've had mothers or friends who have had parents that have ended at Valley High, have used the facility. It's for our poorest seniors, it's for our disabled veterans. And they seem to value it. So I think it's a question we need to ask the voter. And whether or not how we shrink the surplus and how we manage that. Do we need to zero it out, or can we lower the levy to a much lower level so that it's not accumulating as much of a surplus and still preserve it so that in the future, if Medicare, Medicaid doesn't provide what the nursing home needs, and like this year, it's going to be somewhere around $500,000 in deficit spending. And yes, because you've got millions of dollars there in the surplus, it could take a long time to get rid of it. But what about fixes and upgrades? The nursing home administrator presented earlier, he talked about $5.2 million in fixes and upgrades that maybe could be done.
Coming down the pipeline, yeah.
Right, and we've got an aging population. So, you don't know how fast that surplus is going to trickle away, and do you at least want to keep the option open of being able to have the levy available? In addition to that, to go to the public and ask them to now initiate another levy at some point in the future when you've essentially told them, well, we gained so much surplus that we didn't feel we needed it anymore. Now you have to go back to them and say, well, now we need it. It's going to be a hard sell to try to do that. Even if they value the nursing home, it's going to be a hard sell. I think in addition to that, one of the things that we just need to consider is that the Valley High is also an asset for the county. It's surplus, and the fact it runs in the black helps contribute to the county's AAA bond rating. So when we need to go out and get debt certificates for capital improvements or road improvements, it means we will get the very best interest rate. It's like having an 800 credit rating for a person going out to get a mortgage. It means your interest rate is going to be a lot better. And that is valuable to the county because it saves us millions of dollars in debt service if we need to go out and get any debt certificates. So it's a complicated issue, but I think at the bottom of it, it's really how much we value that nursing home. And if the county wants it, then I think the county board needs to ask the voter, and we need to then act accordingly, evaluate all aspects, and make a good decision.
Thank you, Diane. So Diane, a question that I've been asking almost everybody on McHenry County Voter is, do you support term limits as something that's coming up on the state level as a big issue? What was your personal feeling about term limits?
Personally, because this isn't actually an issue that I've ever been asked about or talked about, I would support term limits. I think that individuals that go into public service should be there for public service, and that if you become too concerned about being reelected, that at that point you're more concerned about your agenda and not what you should be concerned about, the public agenda.
Thank you. If you are elected, what are the first projects you are looking to work on? You know, and something you shared with me is you may be placed on a committee for projects to work on.
Right.
But, you know, I'm assuming, can you share with me kind of what you're hoping to do, to accomplish in the first?
Well, I think that obviously I would really like to be involved with some of the being pro-business and doing some of the economic development, trying to attract business to our county. I am a small business owner in Crystal Lake. I know how difficult it is to be a business. Again, when I talk to people, I've had people share with me that, you know, that there are lots of issues that they run into with, for instance, permitting. It makes it hard for small businesses. They have to do a permit. They sometimes have to go out and employ an attorney to help them get the permit and get through the system because it's complicated for them. I think we need to look at what impediments there are for small businesses for expansion and what would make it easier for them to expand, because obviously they've chosen to be in McHenry County. They want to remain in McHenry County, and I think that we want to encourage that. So I would love to be part of that pro-business discussion. I also think one of my strengths is collaboration with people and trying to help the county, municipalities, all of us kind of get on the same page so that we're all moving together with some sort of cohesion to make the county more attractive would be important. I also think, like I say, skilled worker pool is really important. The McHenry County Education to Career Consortium that I was president of for a couple of years was actually a federal grant, and it's lapsed, it's sunsetted. But the goal of the grant was to get business and schools and people from the county that deal with employment together at the table on a regular basis to have the discussion about how do we smooth the transition from students to the world of work? What can we be doing in our high schools to help prepare our kids for what business needs? Not every child goes into college, or they sometimes go into a trade school, or they'll go into a certificated program. So how do we prepare our kids for that? And McHenry County College was at the table, and they have been wonderful about putting together programs for local businesses to help people be able to obtain what they need in the way of a certification to work in a business with a specific machine or in a specific job. So I think I would bring something to the table there. I think I could see a need there. The second thing I'd like to work on, if it would be possible, would be to shrinking the size of the board. There have been all sorts of numbers thrown out as to what the size of the board should be. I rarely hear people say that it should be at 24, but I've heard everything from 7, which is the size of like a city council or a school board, to 16, which would be, there's been some talk of we now have 6 districts with 4 people, spreading us into 16 districts of maybe 1 person per district, and then everybody would know who their representative was. To the original referendum went on with 12 people, and the county board chose to not ignore, they removed that language of a number from the referendum. But initially 12 had been proposed. So I think the number would need to be open. I think if some of it might involve redistricting, which is always kind of a real questionable thing. And again, I think you would need to put together a group of people that is not exclusively the county board, especially if you were looking at redistricting. You'd want like a task force of individuals together who would, some people from outside who would have a more independent view of how redistricting would work if that's the way we're gonna end up going. But I think it would take all of, like I said, it's 2020 is built into the referendum. I think it's gonna take all of the time between now and then to work something out. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long time until the board actually shrinks.
Yes. Well, thank you. And I guess it would also help avoid some of the redistricting woes and problems that the
Right.
state of Illinois has had.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Diane, do you have any local nonprofits that you would like to highlight?
There are 2. One of them is the McHenry County CASA. I've been involved with them for several years, but have known about them a very long time. And they do amazing work. They work with children who are neglected and abused. And the court appoints a CASA as kind of their eyes and ears. And what we do is that we basically become that child's advocate. They may change, like the child that I have, they may change social workers, which mine has 3 times. They may change schools, they may change foster homes, therapists. Everything will change in their life, but once a CASA is appointed, the goal is the CASA will be with them from the moment they're appointed, hopefully after they've become involved with the juvenile court system, to when they are permanently placed in a guardianship or adoption or permanently returned to their parents. So it's a vital role, and it makes a huge difference in the life of a child. So it's a very worthwhile organization. In fact, they are having their, the CASA Cardboard Cup is coming up on October 15th. So if people are interested, that's a great organization. They're doing a silent auction and fundraising with that. The other organization is the Education to Empowerment, which is an MCC foundation. And it deals with providing scholarships to local women who are going to school at MCC. It provides them with a lump sum of money on their sophomore year, and then another sum of money and as they transition to a 4-year college. But more than the funds, it provides them with mentors, people who will help them with resumes and applications, and will be a source of support for them as a network. It's, again, a really excellent organization.
Well, great. And we'll try to find the links to put in the article.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific. So Diane, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Okay, this is so fun because I ask candidates this and they're like, what weekend? I'm campaigning.
Right.
So, but when you get done campaigning, what do you hope to do over the weekend?
Well, I guess that I love to read. I read a lot of books, and so I would love to have more time to do that again. Obviously, spend time with my friends, continue to go to church, and maybe be able to expand that a little bit longer, because now there's only so many hours on a weekend to be out and about. And I like to travel to see my children. My 3 children are all adults. They live on the East Coast, 1 in New York and 2 in Boston. And they're wonderful cities to visit. So I like to be able to travel to them, because as full-time workers, it's hard for them to have the vacation time to come back and see me.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. And then finally, we want to torture you and hope you could tell us a joke.
I am probably one of the world's worst joke tellers. There are those people who really cannot tell jokes, and I am one of them.
Sorry, Diane.
What I will do is tell you a funny situation.
Good. good.
And that was as back in the day when I was still an undergraduate in college. And my husband and I were dating. We went to see a movie called Swept Away. It was at one of the local theaters right near the dormitory where we lived. And I wear contact lenses. In those days, they only had the hard contacts. And some wind blew up and dust got in my eye and my contact popped out on the ground. And of course we were about to walk into a movie theater and I had to have the contact to see the movie. So the people in the theater gave us one of the janitor brooms, the really long ones. And so my husband is pushing, or my then fiance, but eventually my husband was pushing the broom along the sidewalk, and I'm kind of down, looking for that sparkle to see the contact shine in the sun. And a group of people walked by and asked us, "So are you an advertisement for the movie?" And it then dawned on us it was Swept Away, and we were sweeping in front of the movie theater.
Oh, that's an adorable story. And what a very good husband he came to be.
Yes, he was. He
To
was
help
wonderful.
me find that contact. Yeah, I wear contacts myself, and just before we were talking, I got something in my eye as well. So maybe it was reminiscent of,
Yes.
of your funny story. So thank you so much, Diane Johnson, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to us. And again, I'm Vanessa Baker with McHenry County Voter, a nonpartisan resource dedicated to our neighbors in McHenry County and the good people that serve them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, what do you think?